So when you can convince farmers to grow things regeneratively and still pay their bills and make some money, when they believe that what they're doing is actually not only it's good for the environment and for themselves, but they're actually going to be producing a far better product overall.
Mm.
Then you win those hearts and minds at the farming level. So ultimately, anything that we eat, by and large, is grown by somebody, and it's educating or engaging with those somebodies to understand their challenges within their environment and how do they want to do better, and by and large, most of them do, particularly the younger generation.
The Middle East is the origin of brewed coffee, and now it's also home to one of the world's most dynamic and misunderstood coffee markets. At Map It Forward, we're proud to launch the new direction for the Map It Forward Middle East podcast. New conversations in English exploring the businesses, people, and ideas shaping the future of coffee in the Middle East. You'll hear from values-driven founders, supply chain innovators, and entrepreneurs doing things differently, all with one goal in mind: conspiring to each other's success. Whether you're based in the Middle East or exploring how to bring your business to the region, this podcast offers real conversations that go beyond the headlines. Subscribe now by searching Map It Forward Middle East wherever you get your podcasts. Check the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is unfortunately episode 5 of what has been a fantastic 5-part series with Mark Bartlett from Biochar products. And this is also the last episode that is going to be a crossover that will air on the Map It Forward Middle East podcast, as well as the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward. So just a reminder that if you are listening to this episode on the Map It Forward Middle East podcast and you want to continue listening to the global podcast, the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, you just need to go and subscribe on podcasting apps or on our YouTube channel to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward. And if you are listening to this on the global podcast and you want to hear about the Middle East region, you can go and subscribe to the Map It Forward Middle East podcast. So we're talking about the bastardization of quality in cafes and restaurants. And in this episode, we're talking about what are the forces that are eroding society's demand for quality produce and ingredients. Mark, I want to talk about regenerative agriculture, and I want to talk about not the 20 years ago regenerative ag and agroforestry were these terms that were kind of used in amongst the idea of sustainability and climate change, and they were, it was a thing that would happen in the future. And now that agriculture, you spoke about cacao and the price of cacao skyrocketing. These are things that I'm not sure if they can be avoided, but they can at least be slowed down, or the impacts of them can be slowed down and eventually reversed by implementing practices that are regenerative and heading towards agroforestry. And so are we headed into a time, in your opinion, as somebody who works very heavily with ingredients and with the supply chain, are we headed into a time where society is going to be forced into understanding what regenerative is and buying products that are regenerative?
Oh, yes, I firmly believe that. And that's been a process that's been going on now in various ways for the last 25 years. There's also a recognition amongst farmers that they can actually grow fantastic product without using the traditional single crop type approach to farming. Of course, there's always going to be a need for a single crop and some base materials, but by and large, where you've got farmers who have diversity, both in what they're farming on their farm, how they're farming on their farm, and how they're leaving that farm. So I've certainly seen a big change within New Zealand. It's probably New Zealand and Japan I can look at particularly, but Japan's another story. but with New Zealand, there's certainly a great pride amongst the farming community, vast majority wanting to do better, and they're learning. Now, I listened to, I can't remember the name of the fellow, but I'll have to look it up. But I remember listening to a podcast from a fellow down from Southland who was all about regenerative farming.
Mm-hmm.
And all the things that I was thinking about it, he spoke about and more. And I thought, wow. So when you can convince farmers to grow things regeneratively and still pay their bills and make some money, when they believe that what they're doing is actually not only it's good for the environment and for themselves, but they're actually going to be producing a far better product overall.
Mm.
Then you win those hearts and minds at the farming level. So ultimately, anything that we eat by and large is grown by somebody, and it's educating or engaging with those somebodies to understand their challenges within their environment and how do they want to do better, and by and large most of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the younger generation that's coming through. They want to see
Yep.
better waterway. They want to see
Better soil.
more trees on their farms. They want to see all of that, but they also know they have to pay the bank.
Yep.
So it's a balance, and so I think that's a big part of the change. So that answers part of the question.
But where does that shift happen, in your opinion? Like, as we're working very hard at Mapple Forward to get the coffee industry to understand that regenerative ag is something that we have to focus on. We facilitate farmers coming on to teach other farmers in workshops that we run around biochar and around helping people understand regenerative ag, etc., etc., etc. So that can happen inside of the industry. But when it comes to the consumer, how the consumer and the people running businesses and people involved in agriculture, if we take those three stakeholders, right, who is going to drive this shift to quality ingredients that are grown regeneratively? Is it going to be the consumer telling people, I only want to buy products that are grown regeneratively? Is it the business that's going to turn around and say to those consumers, we're going to have to charge you more because we only buy products that are grown regeneratively? Or is it the producer that's going to have to make those shifts and say, I can't afford to do monocropping anymore because the soil will not bear any more fruit, literally, because it's depleted. We've got to think of a longer term solution, and we're only going to grow regenerative.
I'd flip that on its head and look at it a different way.
Okay.
Everything comes from the farm ultimately. So this belief that because you're growing regeneratively
Mm-hmm.
or beyond organic,
Mm-hmm.
there's no perfect solution,
Right.
really. But because you're growing that way, that your product needs to be a lot more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of studies where you can find that farmers who are good farmers and understand their soils and their environment, their terroirs, have realised that actually they can make just as much, if not more money, by doing something properly. But it takes time. And so there's always that period where they are going to lose some production until they go through that change. But and then a lot of that's going to come down to, can they afford to? So I can speak about New Zealand. New Zealand, to own a farm in New Zealand now is a very expensive thing to do. So one has to look, and a lot of my farming friends will hate me for this, but you've got to look at it and say, are farms in New Zealand overpriced? I think that. But that's a different market force. Same with rents, house that we talk
Right.
about, same sort of thing. So, but there's that groundswell. Now, the consumer, you have to engage with the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to ask them to take a leap too far and say, listen, instead of paying 10 dirhams for a product, you're actually going to have to spend 100 dirhams on it, you're never going to win them over.
Right.
It's just too. It's a leap too far. So
Price
you
shock.
have to
Sticker shock.
Yeah. So you'll always get some that will, but as regenerative farming and better farming practices doesn't necessarily need to be in that regenerative farming religion. There are ways to do things, but if you do it step by step, and farmers are doing that step by step, and the consumer can look at this and say, "Oh, I wonder why this product's this one's 10 dirhams, but this one's 15 dirhams."
Mm-hmm.
Some people will be prepared to do that, and then they realise, "Oh, I can use less of this ingredient. I don't need as many tomatoes to make this sauce, or I don't need as much bread because that 2 slices of that bread is completely filling for me."
Yeah.
So once they understand that, then you'll find the slow creep towards it. But it's a very long, slow process. You're always going to get people that just want to shop for cheap, always. And you've got that because some people have to.
Does the business model that exists in kitchens today, given what's going on with all the other forces, when we look at rents doing what they're doing and what do you call it, the inflation and all of those kinds of things that are happening, do we have enough time for those things to catch up? Regenerative to happen and it get more expensive to buy these products, and the business model that's happening in kitchens and in cafes to be profitable. Do you think there's enough time for those two things to find their sweet spot?
Well, I think so. But again, you've got to, the cafe owners, the restaurant owners have to want to do it.
Can you say more on that?
Well, you've got to look at why do I own this cafe, or why do I own this chain? If I'm owning this cafe or owning this chain because actually for individual cafes it's a little different, but if I own this chain, do I own this chain because I want to make a difference and I want to give an experience to people who come, and I really want that, or do I just want to do the bare minimum to get me by, so that and cheapen things down because that's a consumer that I'm looking for,
right?
And I can make money. I can make lots more money more easily. I think a lot of people are challenged by unless it's cheap, or unless the food cost is as cheap as it can be. A lot of people are challenged by that. Oh, my customer won't buy that, or my customer can't afford that. You get a lot of that, but then I come back often to some of these people, and I understand the cost structure in a restaurant and a cafe. I understand what that is. You have to say, well, does the cost of, if I'm buying something for 10 dirhams, does the actual input cost of that, can that only be 1 dirham? And there's a lot that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, well, hang on, what's the rest? What's the other 9 dirhams for? And of course, you'll have a lot of answers for that. Plenty of answers for it.
Yeah.
But okay, if you think, well, I can only sell X number of these products, therefore that's what I have to do, then it's a losing game. But if the cafe owner or chain owner, particularly, they're the people who are going to make the difference,
Right.
not the individual cafe. If they think, actually, I want a better experience for my team, and I know that if I sell, you cannot bank margin. You can only bank sales.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do this and increase my quality and let the consumer understand why, because consumers they don't want to be flooded with things. The vast majority of consumers just want a relatively easy hit as to why this is better. And usually it's 1 point or 2 points. People like you and I, we want to know all the details behind it, but we're a very small part of that overall concern. So to me, it's engaging with chains, and I'll tell you what, there are some that are doing it, that are trying to make a difference. There are some people who are passionate about what they do. I can look in this town and see that, and I think, wow, that's great. You're doing something good. So it gives you hope. But the big chains, they've got a long way to go. more often than not, they can't make a single change to anything unless they go back to the headquarters in the United States or in the UK or in whatever. They're locked into this junk culture.
Bureaucracy, yeah.
Well, it's
Bureaucracy,
junk
yeah. That's led by shareholder dividends and, making things more cost effective and convenience. And how do we make a Big Mac taste the same everywhere, and French fries taste the same everywhere that we go. It's not about... Well, you mentioned something in the first episode that was really telling, and I think plays a bigger role in quality than we may realise, or than we've spoken about in this series, and that's the immediacy of feedback. So when you're a chef that's in a kitchen, like you were talking about when you were at Raw, and you are sending food out off the pass, and it comes back barely touched, that's immediate feedback for you as the chef that tells you something about the quality of that dish. And let's say it happened once, you may ask the server to go back and say to somebody, can you ask them if there was something wrong with the dish?
Ultimately, the server should be asking that question before they clear it.
Right. But if that dish keeps coming back again and again and again, that's not a customer problem. That's a product problem. Or a kitchen problem, right? And the fact that when you own the business and you can get the immediacy of that feedback, you can make decisions in real time as the chef to make the quality better. When the people making the decisions are in an office in Omaha and they have no real connection to the relationship between the consumer and the product, we don't really have so much control, right?
No, you don't. If I look at Raw as a good example, one complaint would cause significant discussion. Now, not every complaint is valid, but you always must take, you must take, but if somebody doesn't like something, there's usually a good reason why. And, right. And that certainly within Raw, one of the things I'm proud about Raw is we've gone, and I say we because I look at it as my business. It's not. We the complaint level we have now is tiny.
Yeah.
Every restaurant gets complaints. Every 3-star Michelin, 2 1-stars, they get complaints. Everybody. So there's no such thing. You cannot please everybody.
Right.
But the amount of complaint that we get back from Raw is minimal. Absolutely minimal. And when we do, we take it seriously. Absolutely. And good kitchens do. And they act on it quickly.
I can verify that because so I have eaten at Raw a lot, and you guys changed up the vegan burger.
Yep.
And I was there just a couple of weeks ago to have a meeting with Matt and Kim. And we had lunch, and they said, do you want the vegan burger? I'm like, actually, the last time I had it, there was something not quite right with it.
Yep.
And immediately the questions started. It wasn't like invalidating what my experience was. It was immediately, can you tell us what the experience was? Like, what didn't you like about it? What would you like? What do you think we should change about it? What are some of your ideas? So it was this, first of all, I felt very seen as a customer, that my experience wasn't invalidated. And second of all, there was an immediacy in wanting to improve that product. And then I was invited to, hey, can you come back in a couple of weeks, try the vegan burger again, and tell us if we've done better.
How long ago was this?
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Funny enough, because I'm not aware of this from Matt and Kim, but separately, I had been looking at the vegan burger, and I thought there's something different here.
Yeah, right.
And I independently sort of started to talk to the kitchen and blah, blah, blah. What have you done?
Great. Something's changed.
Yeah. And so ultimately, it ended up by being a worldwide discussion because I then went to a couple of the chefs who now no longer in Raw, and one particular is in Australia, and I went back and I said, hey, I think you were central in putting this together. can you just send me your recipe for it? And he said, oh, Mark, you should know. I said, well, I don't. Send it. and 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 he did. And we looked at it together with Kitchen, and they said, oh, yes. Okay. It was the process in which you're physically cooking down the product to get the actual patty itself, for want of a better term, and how, and it was quite illuminating. So maybe I wasn't there at the time when you had your issue, and maybe Matt and Kim sort of looked at that, but I do believe it's been sorted.
And my point with that is, like, when you're a place that is known for having quality food, when you fuck it up, people can make some space for that. And people will know that they can tell you that something's not right and that you're going to fix it. Whereas when you've got a restaurant like McDonald's are selling on volume, and they don't really care if you get a bad Big Mac. And the chances are you're not actually going to get a bad Big Mac, because every Big Mac tastes exactly the same. They hire people who don't have to think. They give them exactly the procedure. Everything's pre-weighed, everything's pre-done, so that everything's going to taste exactly the same. If that's how you want your food, then that may be quality to you. But if you want to go somewhere and have something cooked for you that you know isn't going to cause you to be ill, you're probably going to be looking for restaurants or cafes that are owned individually.
Absolutely. I think that's that individual, or at least having two or three. There are some people who are actually doing things quite well. There's a place called Home Bakery. And it's
Home's doing awesome.
Oh, incredible. And the passion, the I think it's a brother and sister that own it, both Emiratis, the passion they have.
Yeah.
I just think, wow.
I got to try and get her on the podcast, because she's.
You should.
Yeah, they are expanding into Saudi. They're doing amazing things. We should get them on the podcast. And you know, the one thing that I have realized is that when people care about the ingredients that they're putting into the product, and then make sure that the product is made well with great baristas, great chefs. They care about the education. They care about the experience of the people. You know, here in this region, a lot of the people that start working in kitchens come from, a lot of the time, third world countries that don't have the same kinds of cuisines as what are eaten here. They are going on a whole brand new journey of what food is. And that can often be very exciting if they have someone to guide them through that process.
Yeah. Yes. And having that mentor within a business, and I can only look at Home Bakery and look at it and say, hey, I've never had anything disappointing there, and more often than not, what I've had has been very, very good. And so there is something within there, whatever they're doing. I don't think it's run by terror. I think it's been run by mentoring and doing things. Because everybody within that operation seems to be happy.
Yeah, love that.
So, and that's a good point too. So yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about Home Bakery for a while. I must go back.
It's really funny you say that, because we recorded the series with Matt and Kim yesterday for the Middle East podcast, and they talked about Home Bakery as well.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay, cool.
Which is really interesting.
Great minds.
Great minds. Okay, Mark, as we wrap up this series, would you tell everyone where they can find out about Bon Accord? And if I understand it correctly, your products are available globally?
Not in every country, but we are throughout the Middle East. We're in Japan and Asia, and we're spreading through into Europe. It's a little difficult in this part of the world. As far as, I suppose the easiest way is just type in bonaccord.co.nz. You'll be diverted to the website here, and you can have a look. But if you really want to know, come into Raw.
Yep. And for people all over the world, because this is the global podcast as well, you supply to obviously New Zealand, Australia, America.
New Zealand, Australia, Pacific Islands, Japan, parts of Southeast Asia and the Middle East. We are spreading into Europe as we speak. It's some development that we're doing now.
Great.
But if somebody from a cafe operation or a chain or a small chain or whatever, in let's say
Wisconsin?
we're talking to a business now in Scandinavia, and we can make things work.
Okay, great.
But monochord products not an easy thing to get to understand to start with, and you've got to have a bit of creativity as well. And once you learn about us, we love engaging. We love people who'd like to engage and say, "Hey, let's have fun," because that's what it's all about.
Check it out, folks. I've been endlessly impressed by a lot of the stuff that I've had. Best matcha I've ever tasted. Just go check it out and see what you think. Again, no financial arrangement here. This is just we are very fortunate. You've no idea how fortunate we are to have Mark on the podcast. Mark, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I feel deeply privileged that we got to do this. Hopefully we can, Matt, Kim, you and I can go and have some amazing high quality Lovant food at Zarub one day soon. And we can talk about all the other fun things that are happening in the food industry.
So many amazing things. I'm waiting to experience Syrian pistachio. I've just been learned that's some of the best in the world. I can't wait to try that.
Well, now that Syria's opened up and we're only a few hours away, we should go to Damascus and have it there.
Love to.
Awesome. So we have a tradition on this show. On the last episode, we invite the guest to sign us off with peace, love and peanut butter. Now, I know you don't like peanut butter. But would you mind signing us off with peace, love and peanut butter for this series?
Peace, love and peanut butter. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward.